You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Hi there, this is Mike Quinn, and I played Nine Numb in the Star Wars movies, and I want to say hi to the Cantina Club. Yeah, may the force be with you.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club. This week we're going to discuss all the things we liked about the Book of Boba Fett, and we'll get to it right after this.
We all know around here, Solo always does shots first. Singing yo no, raise your glass and sing yo no. Sing it with me, yo no.
The smirk of disdain.
You're projecting your own shame into my smirk.
Yes, I am.
It doesn't.
Yes,
Smirk's not
I'm really good at
I have resting smirk face.
that. Yeah, you do. All right, so we're back, and like I said, this week we're going to discuss everything that we enjoyed about the Book of Boba Fett.
Maybe not everything.
Well,
Some things.
you know what I mean. We're gonna keep it positive this week, and just talk about the things we liked about the show. We don't really have any particular format to this, other than we're gonna try and keep it under 5-hour discussion. So, but actually, I think that would be the negative. Anyway, but the first negative comment comes from
I just misquoted Princess. Doesn't sound too hard.
But before we get into all that, we're going to get back to, we haven't done this in a while, but we're going to do a Veriku segment. And I don't know who wants to start. Who wants to go first on Veriku? How about you, Greedo?
Okay. Veriku, right? That's where we show something we got recently.
Yep.
All right. Well, I got this Lord
Ooh,
of the Rings.
sweet.
You can see the Obi-Wan. You can see the Obi-Wan meme reflected.
Oh yeah, you see that. Reflecting the meme.
Well, there's a ton of Obi-Wan memes. Anyway,
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I got the Elijah Wood, Dominic Monaghan, and Billy Boyd.
Billy Boyd, yep.
Signed at Dallas Fan Expo.
Sweet.
And got Ian McKellen and Orlando Bloom and Carl Urban and Bernard Hill.
Ian McKellen, yep.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that he signed it in white and like everybody else is
Yeah.
red. That's perfect.
Yeah, he was at a stage door, so he does whatever he wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just looking to get a signature. But yeah, that's mine. It's coming along. It's a
Okay.
16 by 20 that I'm just missing John Rice Davies.
Oh yeah.
Vigo and Sean Bean on it now. Depending on how far you want to go.
Gotta get the hardest.
Keep going forever.
The hardest ones to find. You're still finding. Okay, I've got a few things here that I picked up since last time. I've got a one more Funko that I got, which is Luke and Grogu. I thought was kind of a cool one.
That is cool.
Really neat.
Thought that was very cool. And then other than that, I just got basically some magazines and books. I did pick up about 6 weeks ago. I picked up the Vanity Fair issue.
Oh, cool.
With all the photo shoot of all the Disney Plus characters together, which is really cool. Also the latest issue of Star Wars Insider, as always, with the Mandalorian on it. Okay. And then last but not least, I picked up the official collector's edition of basically it's just a kind of a summary of the Clone Wars book.
Oh.
It's nice to hardback, and it just basically goes through all the story arcs and all of the characters, and just everything, breaks it down season by season, and all that's kind of an in-depth look at the Clone Wars, which is really, really nice. So
that's neat. So maybe I need to get a copy of that so I can get
you
some
open
reminders.
It up and it says chapter 1, 5s. The end.
Yes,
it's over.
It's a book about 5s.
the book of fives.
Yeah, the Book of 5. That's the next show instead of Book of Boba Fett. They just want the Book of 5s. And by the way, Gundark, that was not neat. It was very cool.
Very cool.
Yes.
It's very cool.
It was
It's not the
indeed
neat section. It's
very
the
cool,
very cool
very cool.
section.
I'm gonna have to borrow it from you when the Ahsoka series comes out, because it took me so long to get through Clone Wars the first time. I'm gonna need some refreshers of stuff before the new Ahsoka show comes out. So I need a quick read.
Yeah, exactly.
You
You mean you're not gonna
Refresh.
watch it for a fifth time?
I
Six
can't
times,
get,
seventh
yeah, I
time?
can't do it the seventh time like the Traitor, but
Yeah, I'm
I'd like
actually I'm
to.
almost to the end of season 6 now. I've kind of had a pause the past couple of weeks. I've been busy with other stuff, but I always forget how good season 6 is. The Lost Missions, the ones that was released after the show was canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget that what a good season that actually was. But okay, and you don't have anything for us on Veriku this time,
No,
Gundar,
not
correct?
this week.
Okay.
Not this week.
Gotcha.
Maybe next week.
Okay. All right. So let's get into our topic here and discuss basically the things that we enjoyed and the positives we took away from the Book of Boba Fett. Who would like to start this discussion?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll
I had a feeling.
Jump into the Sarlacc pit. No, I'm gonna pull Boba out of the Sarlacc pit is my first
Nice.
positive. I enjoyed seeing him get out of the Sarlacc pit. I mean, we wondered about that for years, and we knew that it was probably going to be in there. And I enjoyed the way that they did it. The way of recovering the armor later. In the ship and everything, as all of that was a lot of fun to see, throw back to Return of the Jedi. So I'm glad that they chose to include that. I was a little bit worried beforehand that it might seem like it was giving too much background information, but I didn't feel that when I saw it.
No, same here.
Too much, yeah, it wasn't too much exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed.
They showed you. They just showed you.
Yeah, it just showed it to you, and it kind of jumped right in. It was like one of the very first things they showed on episode 1. I love that.
And it showed that he went through hell too, and then he get picked up by the Tusken Raiders after that, and the hardship of trying to integrate into their culture just made that more effective. That he had gone from the Sarlacc pit to that.
And even before that, how he just basically got, robbed by the Jawas.
Yeah.
all of his armor and equipment stolen. Those trusty Jawas.
Okay, I'm going to throw it to Greedo.
All right, I'm going to say one of the things I liked about the Book of Boba Fett was its convenient book form. No, it was the it was the Tuskens and their design. And specifically what I mean by that is the more I watched some of those episodes, I really liked the design touches on the Tusken Raiders themselves, because they could have looked exactly like what you see at conventions and exactly what you see in Star Wars, but they had their own tribal identity that came through in the clothes they wore and the kind of the ways they moved. And they had a lot more dark colors worked into their wardrobes and a few different types of fabrics and some, I don't know if it was beads or rope or what, but dark fabrics worked and woven in throughout and made to almost look like dreads and beads and different things like that. And even down to some of the colors on their faces, and their design was just really cool, and it gave them a different kind of identity without hitting you over the head with it. And it also, they had this very well planned out, because we saw Boba Fett in the Mandalorian the season before show up with his black Tusken robes. Well, by the time you get to the part where they clothe him themselves in these robes, it makes sense because of their color palette is different than the average Tusken Raider, and they, because of his personality, his journey or whatever, they kind of anoint him as the black, Tusken. So they take that color and emphasize that on the helmet. And I think that said a lot about where his character was going and how they saw him and how his position in their tribe and stuff like that. And so I really appreciated that about it. I thought that was a home run, was the Tusken design, specifically the costumes, but everything about their village and all that stuff as well.
Right,
Yeah, the
absolutely. And
costumes also did a good job of differentiating between the different characters
mhm.
and their roles within their society. I thought that was really cool. They put that level of detail into it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
Very
especially
true.
that's important when you have a bunch of characters that are all masked, and
Hmm.
you're not seeing human faces. And
Right.
you have to differentiate between them and make them real characters. And so the look of that outfit is going to be really important for that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, even the actors lose the ability to differentiate even, but or act with their facial expressions, which is a huge key to acting, and they don't even have that. So yeah, it takes a lot of talent to really kind of express emotion and certain ways of how you're feeling when you're completely masked with no expression. So yeah, they did an excellent job with that.
Hmm.
I'll kind of keep with the same theme here and talk about the cultural aspects of the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders that they showed. I know we all loved the dance at the end, which was phenomenal. Really, really enjoyed that. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is how they explained that basically not all Sand People are the same. We had been led to believe that Sand People are just these barbaric, you know, creatures that'll just kill on sight, in the wilds
Yeah,
of wild deserts
they're
of
mutants
Tatooine.
or something, like hills have eyes,
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, exactly. But yeah, we find out that they even explain it, that not all groups and not all clans of Sand People are the same. Some are more peaceful, some are more productive, some are more, yeah, the barbaric sort. So I enjoyed that level of detail as well, finding out just how advanced their culture was within what it is that they do.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's very interesting too.
I'll pick up from there too and point out a particular Tuscan. I love Joanna Bennett as the Tuscan warrior,
Hmm.
the stunt woman who
Yeah,
gave
she's
such
fantastic.
character to she gave such character to that role,
Hmm.
even when she wasn't doing the fighting sequences. And it was a wonderful performance, and the stunts that she did were wonderful. And I really liked seeing Boba trained by her, and then the work that she did in the train attack,
Yeah.
Hmm.
the stunts and the fighting that she did in the train attack. All of that was outstanding, and it made the train attack kind of, for me, one of the best action set pieces in all of Star Wars. I really enjoyed that part, and a good bit of it was due to her role in that. So
Yeah, agreed.
kudos to
Yeah,
her.
yeah, she was a standout, definitely a standout character. And yeah, I mean, we've seen her work in other shows, but I thought she just really did a great job in this. And like you said, the train attack is a great example of that. And not to mention the one-on-one sparring with Boba and the training and all that. That was really well done. Really, really, really cool.
Shows what you can accomplish when you invest a little bit of time and thought into new characters, even the side characters and everything. You can make them have an impact and be memorable,
Hmm.
not just based upon the mask or the alien design or whatever, based upon their actual character and their characteristics and the way they act. And it can have an impact, emotional impact, and interest, bring the interest of the audience along. It's something we see far too little of in a lot of media. Is a lot of
Hmm.
the characters just, we know they're there to fulfill just a purpose, and so we don't get invested in them. They're just, part of they're hitting their marks in the script.
Hmm.
But when you actually allow people to bring something to those roles, I think that's not to get off track, but I think that's where the genius of George Lucas and the hubris of George Lucas intersects is at Jar Jar, because people get angry at Lucas. Sure, he wrote the words on the page and everything,
Hmm.
but then he allowed his actor to bring his performance to it. And just like he did with Anthony Daniels, when he always thought of 3PO as an American Southern California used car salesman.
Right.
Well, he allowed Anthony Daniels eventually to persuade him and other people to persuade him to keep his interpretation on that character and that stamp on that character, which was the original performer, and giving him his voice and everything. And that's what he did with Jar Jar, and with Ahmed Best as well. And there's no denying that Ahmed Best is a very talented performer. It just didn't ring true or
Right.
correct with the audience at the time. But
Right.
but anyway, that's what I'm saying, is like sometimes you give these characters room to breathe and wonderful things happen. And some, you have to take the bad with the good, and not blame, and really not blame people, because they're following an age-old practice with Lucasfilm of letting people, even Alec Guinness was allowed to rewrite dialogue. Carrie Fisher was allowed to rewrite, Harrison Ford, everybody. So anyway, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But that Tusken and I wanted to say the Tusken leader, those are both great examples.
Yeah,
And the
chief,
child,
yeah.
those three stood out. But another thing that I thought was interesting was, not to go too far into it, but it's obvious as it goes along that Boba Fett's looking for that family, and the Tusken female is, of course, who is Nawin playing.
What's that?
Fennec Shan.
Oh,
Fennec Shan.
Yeah,
It's obvious
character.
she's a correlation for Fennec Shan, and even though the female Tusken is the one really training Boba Fett and bringing him along, he's really adopting his Tusken characteristics more from the chief without realizing it. They end up standing side by side a lot. He's in battle and shoulder to shoulder with the female, and she's teaching him to use these skills, but he's in no way emulating her. He's actually emulating the chieftain because he's drawn to the top dog. And he also, something about the calmness that character radiates. The chieftain's always in charge, always calm. And he responds to the people under him. It's like the dance is a great example where the chieftain doesn't start the dance.
Right.
Doesn't do a lot. He doesn't initiate a whole lot of things, but he's wise enough to watch and accept what's happening when it's good and put a stop to it when it's bad or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's what Boba Fett more gravitates to, even though he's spending all the time with the champion. The champion really ends up being Fennec Shand, and he ends up being the chieftain or whatever. There was some good ideas in there when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
So
okay.
Who's next?
I think we're just kind of jumping in randomly. I'll actually bring up another character I really enjoyed, who I was not familiar with before the show, but then I learned, of course, that they were in lots of other expanded universe stuff, and that's Black Chrysanthemum, the Wookiee. I thought that was a really cool character, and I thought it was interesting to learn, seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff, how the actor, who unfortunately the name escapes me, but the actor who played him refused to speak. And you know what I'm saying, like on set he wouldn't speak when he was in costume because he didn't want to break that aura of mystique around the character. So basically once he was in costume, he was in character, which I thought was cool. I enjoyed that, but I love that character. I thought he was really added a lot to it. And it's a character that I hope we see again, and I'm glad they used him for multiple episodes in the season. It wasn't just a one-off moment cameo for that character, just for as a fan service type thing. I'm glad they actually used it throughout the season.
Yeah, I hope he'll return too. If you're going with characters, I also want to mention the Lannister twins huts.
Yeah,
Lannister twins. The twin hut. Oh, that I wish that they hadn't decamped so quickly, and left Tatooine, because I really liked their introduction. It was something new with the huts, and it was fun and silly, and I wanted to see a little bit more of them. So I kind of hoping maybe at some point in the future they'll show up. It kind of reminded me of the expansion on the hut families in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, they had quite a bit.
Some of the other hut characters, in the Clone Wars, and it was a lot of fun to see.
I wanted to say Black Chrysanthemum was played by Kerry Jones.
Okay, thank you.
I looked it up just to give him his proper due, because he did a phenomenal job.
He really did.
I loved they gave him a lot of close-ups, and where his eyes were
the expressions were priceless.
They were great.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, I agree with Gundark about the huts. I've always liked kind of learning a little bit more about. I always thought it was interesting when they would explore that in Clone Wars, and sometimes silly, sometimes serious, but always interesting, I thought. But yeah, so it was great seeing. It's just, the huts are so Star Wars to me, if you know what I mean. When I see a hut, it's like, oh, that's just Star Wars. So when I saw them on screen, I thought it was a great moment. So especially when that they first heard the drums when Boba Fett was in the club, and you just hear the drums and they walk out, and oh my gosh, there's two huts on a giant Diaz being carried by slaves. It's like, okay.
Now I would have contributed to the Kickstarter if they were willing to do them in real time on the set. like
Yeah.
Jabba was.
Or as opposed to
Is
CGI.
this is one thing this is on my list. I was going to bring up the practical effects. I like the practical effects in the show, which includes the Rancor, which I was going to bring him up as well. But the Rancor face that they use, the head and shoulders, where people are interacting with it, is really, really done amazingly well. But I would have paid a lot of money to see them try to tackle 2 Hutts and cart them around, because Hutts don't have to be full. They don't have to be full grown. You know, they could be middle stage or something.
Right.
Or they could just go for it and make them super huge. But I would have, the Hutts kind of, and Jabba and all that has kind of made an appearance in every type of Star Wars special effects representation you can have for a character, you know, from the original practical to the very, very gruesome early CGI to the which, how was it that bad? I have no idea. It was anything after Jurassic Park had no business being that bad, but and then you got animated versions, then you've got, you know, back to more modern CGI and stuff. And but anyway, I would have loved to see them tackle that. I know I'm learning. Well, I won't go there because that could be interpreted as negativity. So I won't do that. But you know, they do a very good job within their budget of making their budget work sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was part of that decision. but I wanted to say the Rancor and the practical effects, and you guys can talk about that if you want. But the Rancor was a home run. I felt like the main issue I had with him was that he wasn't in there enough. They kind of just introduced him just to bring him in for that scene at the end, and I would have liked some development of that relationship rather than just saying, you know, the Rancor, if it wakes up from a nap and it sees you, it's bonded to you. I would like to have seen Boba Fett earn that a little more. He was just giving him, you know, and I want to know why they have a bond. But it would have been
we didn't
cool if
that
that had been another thing he had rescued, you know, like if he had told the Hutts, yeah, you can go, but I'm taking your Rancor because you abuse him, you know,
as opposed to receiving it as a gift.
And he deserves better. And they're like, well, okay, you can have it, something like that. But anyway, the Rancor kicks butt, and the practical effects and the sets and everything. The fact you felt like you were walking around Tatooine and stuff, pretty cool, you know.
Absolutely, that was great.
They need to expand Galaxy's Edge with these sets and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
At least have a corner that's a Tatooine corner or whatever.
Right. I mean, I always prefer the practical effects over a lot of CGI. I mean, you know, I have nothing against CGI.
The best CGI, though, a lot of times we don't even know is there.
That's the thing. Yeah,
it sneaks by, you know.
Agreed. Yeah, you don't even notice that it's happened. But I do like CGI when it's done well, and when it's limited and it doesn't just go overboard. Not, you know, and kind of like the prequels where you just use it for the sake of using it. I love the practical effects in this. That's a great point. The Rancor was great. I loved it.
Okay, I'll jump in next. I want to go back to the Tusken episode and point out one thing that the television shows seem to be doing really well is the art of montage. You know, we don't get montages in the movies so much.
Right.
And I just love the montage of when after he goes on his spirit journey, his spirit quest, and he comes back and they clothe him in his new Tusken robes, and then he makes the gaffy stick. The making of the gaffy stick, the music that went with it, the respect, the elation of doing that, all of that was just, it was so wonderful to watch. And then have it end in the warrior dance was just a spectacular ending that, if I remember right, there wasn't any dialogue throughout, right? There wasn't any dialogue.
Just Boba Fett occasionally is like telling the chieftain, like, "Oh, you want me to do this?" or "Oh,
right,
that's basically or whatever." Yeah. So he talks a couple times, but once he wanders off into the haze, I don't think there's any dialogue.
No, from that point on,
it's just flashes scenes of his youth and the spooky Jawas.
It tells such a story that enhances his character, gives depth to his character and to their culture and to all of those Tusken characters. So beautifully done within a short period of film time. And that's something that the television series are starting to do really well, is montages like that. Yeah. And I'll mention later when we talk about later parts of the series, there's another one that I wanted to talk about.
And one of the things to
later
talk
in the
about on that
series.
scene, I love the fact that that scene was also based around one of the early Ralph McQuarrie paintings,
Yes.
Yes,
which
yeah,
was done really well. That was really,
yeah,
really a
nice
shock when I
callback
saw that.
there.
I was like, oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That just
that's
shows
for
you,
people like us who just stared at those images
right? Yeah, since we were like 10
over
years
and
old,
over.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, imagining what that world is like, and also imagining the just sheer talent of someone like Ralph McQuarrie and just being in awe of that. I remember trying to trace those drawings, trying to draw
Mhm.
like him in any way.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like the guy is such a talent and genius.
absolutely.
Any callback to the original artists and artistry and stuff we always
Mhm.
enjoy. But I will say that I did enjoy, and I mentioned this when we were recapping the shows. I enjoyed how on Book of Boba Fett they show people passing knowledge to each other
Mhm.
and actively, and it's not just some time has passed, and now Boba Fett is acting like a tribesman or whatever. He actually has to go do it. And since I'm talking about it, I want to start with the scene where he goes in the tent at night and they do the lizard up the nose thing.
Mhm.
There's I won't go into the negativity, but there's been criticism, and we criticized the lack of thought and detail connecting things together in a
Mhm.
sensible way on some of these shows. But it shows you again that you can do it. You can do it, and you can do it in a subtle way, and it doesn't have to pander to anyone or anything. But I love the imagery. Whoever was responsible for this stuff, but when he goes in and the campfire's there, and the campfire light is reflected off of all the Tuscans' eyes.
Mhm.
That's the kind of scene I want to see in my kind of epic or mythological, heroic, whatever you want to call it. I know it's also a Western. I want to see it in Westerns too. I mean, it's little touches in cinematography that look so good, and it immediately set them apart as alien. Like they're looking at him. They have something that he doesn't have, and he has to penetrate that
Yeah.
wall. They're a unified wall of reflecting stuff back at him. They're impassive, and he has to figure out what's behind that mask and what they're looking at. And there's an interaction there that's really just in that one image. I found that very memorable. And then the fact that even though he pretty much, we don't know what it cost him to go on that journey, but he did go out in the desert again and survive another desert journey. And the fact that he was willing to take instructions from this Tuscan weapon master or whatever and sit there and forge that and create that and carve that gaffy stick with them and invest his blood, sweat, and tears into it.
Mhm.
I like seeing that. I like seeing the different characters. And he teaches them at one point different things, and they teach him, and they actually bother to show it. And most of the time, that's just kind of glossed over.
Mhm.
And anyway, I really, really enjoyed that, and the fact that he earned that heritage, his own little niche in their culture, by forging the gaffy stick, by surviving the journey, and then they anoint him with the black cloth and everything. That stuff's really cool, And to start it with the image of the Tuscans with their eyes reflecting the firelight, like there's an enigma there, and nothing is better than a mystery, to get you hooked or
Mhm.
aura of
And to
mystery.
maintain
Again,
interest.
yeah, they can be savage and you can be scared of them, and they could be a good antagonist that you're afraid of
Mhm.
showing up. But if they are savage, they're no better than zombies, at the end of the day. So then just revealing them having more layers and stuff, and during that flashback sequence and all that, when the Jawas were there with their glowing eyes and stuff too, you begin to get the sense that there's more going on Tatooine, and in the history, there is a history that these seemingly primitive cultures remember together, that unifies them together, that they remember that maybe when people who seem like more like newcomers don't, or people that don't dwell deep in the desert and stuff and aren't in
Mhm.
touch with this primitive side, don't necessarily remember. So, which again is a mystery. I find all that very intriguing. It's the first time I was ever intrigued by Tatooine,
Mhm.
in a long time.
Right.
So,
So speaking of characters, which we've picked out here and there, how about Cobb Vanth? I know we were all big fans of that character. I thought he was well used in this as well. I'm just glad we got to see him again, because there was that rumor that, leading up to it, that we were going to see him, but we weren't sure. But yeah, it was fantastic. I loved seeing him on there. And of course, that's going to lead into another character, which I won't talk about yet. but
Go ahead.
Okay, Cad Bane.
Go for it.
Well, yeah, on my list here is Cad Bane versus Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
Cad Bane.
Yeah, that was an amazing moment.
Battle of the similar names. Cad Bane,
Yeah.
Cobb Vanth. One sounds more harmless, Cobb Vanth. One sounds Cad Bane. Very
Cad Bane, yeah.
two bad things. Cobb is corn on the cob or whatever.
Corn on the cob
It's pretty benign.
But I loved how they were shot. Obviously, they were very, very much Old West high noon showdown, style. But I liked the two showdowns, the one with Cobb Vanth and the one with Boba Fett in the end. The one I preferred is probably the Cobb Vanth one, just because it was the introduction of the character, and I still have that light bulb moment when I realized it was him. When they're just showing this weird tiny little figure out in the shimmering desert walking up, and eventually it's like, oh no, I saw the hat. I was like, that's him. To pull that off and in live action is not easy, as we know, going from animated to live action. Things that translate easily in animation don't always translate in live action. I thought they did a really good job of translating that. Plus, they got Corey Burton to do the voice, which is the same person who's voiced him in every incarnation of him. So that was fantastic as well. So yeah, that was a big home run for me, was not only Cobb Vanth, but seeing Cad Bane brought to live action in such a meaningful, interesting way. And kind of like a point that Greedo, I think, makes too, is that we've had a real trouble having a lot of intriguing and captivating villains in Star Wars lately. And
Yeah.
I think Cad Bane helps that. I just find him interesting when he's on screen. I'm just riveted.
Yeah.
I find, what is he going to do? And because his character, he's ruthless. He's not going to play around with anything, and he doesn't mince words. So I loved the integration of that character into the show.
And I think people that maybe had not watched Clone Wars, I had gotten through most of the Cad Bane episodes of Clone Wars when I saw that. I don't think I had finished the whole series yet, but I knew who he was. But I can imagine people who didn't know who he was,
I'm sure a lot of
having
people
the
didn't
crap
know.
scared out of him when he shows up.
Yeah.
It was like, this guy is bad. They're playing on the old Western tropes of the noble marshal or sheriff versus the just totally evil gunslinger. And he just exuded a completely callous, heartless sense of evil about him. The way he spoke, the way he moved, the small pauses. What really got me was the close-ups of his face. Whatever they did CGI or whatever they did with the face was real effective. And the way that he would pause a second before he would speak, like he was giving great power to what he was about to say. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, the performance and the voiceover work. Who's the actor who did it in Clone Wars?
Corey Burton.
Yeah. He was so wonderful. The voice just
the
gained new
voice
power.
was incredible. Yeah, it really was. And then there's that old actor's adage that powerful people are in no rush.
Right.
Yeah.
They're in no rush to speak because they're used to people stopping to listen to them and let them finish what they're saying.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was you had Timothy Oliphant playing Cobb Vanth, who brings, it's like casting Nicolas Cage or something. He brings the whole history of Timothy Oliphant, which I can't think of a single time he ever got outgunned ever in anything, and he's been a gunslinger plenty of times.
Yep. That's a good point.
I can't think of any time anyone's ever been faster than him. So you already have established, just from who they cast, what their intent is. This is another wise ass, but fair-minded. He's there for the right reasons, justice and all that. But he's a badass, and he speaks slowly as well. He has every bit of sense about him and everything. And the way those two characters match up, for being never having met and everything, it was more powerful than the Boba Fett and Cad Bane, which we had never seen them meet, but they supposedly have. You know, we'd never seen them in the show meet.
Right.
But anyway, it was really, really well done when you think of it from. Also, you know, a lot had happened in that episode, and then you had the Mandalorian show up and recruit Cobb Vanth, and you think, oh, we've got Cobb Vanth, Boba Fett, the Mandalorian, Fennec Shand, Black Chrysanthemum. We've got a pretty formidable, you know, who's gonna go toe to toe with these guys.
Yeah.
And then you just have Cad Bane show up, and I love it when a villain outsmarts the hero. And he basically had already thought of what, or because of the things that established before, he knew he had to keep Cobb Vanth. He's like, this guy is just mowing down our people that go in his territory, so I better go handle him. And he pretty much cuts that all off at the knees, you know. That makes him a presence. But they did it in such a way that we were like, are they really going to kill Cobb Vanth? Because we were ready for him to be back and be involved. You know, it looked like they were. It was a really, really nice change of pace where they pulled the rug out from under you. It was like an extra scene where you thought this episode was over, and then nope, we're gonna mow down Cobb Vanth while we're at it and have Cad Bane show up. So it really there was 2 episodes where I was super excited at the end of each one. One was the Tusken episode 2, and one was that episode where you're just like, you know, when they do it right, and you feel like anything can happen next, and you really want to see it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So okay, I'll interject the next one. That and perhaps this is controversy, and it's weird to say that, you know, my favorite episode of, you know, the Book of Boba Fett was the Mandalorian episode, because we literally got, you know, Mandalorian basically season 3 episode 1, you know, thrown into the middle of Book of Boba Fett, because I think that was the only episode Boba Fett didn't speak, and he was only on camera for like 12 seconds or something. But that was a really excellent episode. I really love that.
You know what's on my list? It's
what's that?
The 2 Mando episodes.
That's what I listed. 2 Mando episodes.
So I'm right there with you, and I don't care what people say about it. Get used to it is the way I look at it, because you're not guaranteed just because it has the Mandalorian in the title. They could spend an episode following any one of these side characters,
Ahsoka or whoever.
And once you separate the main 2 characters in the series, and then you start bringing them back up, well, you could have an episode following either or both, you know, because they're the leads. I get the criticisms and everything, but it didn't bother me in the least. I just want to see good content.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because it said Book of Boba Fett, if that part of it's not going well and you want to switch gears and show me something great, I want to see the great thing, you know.
Absolutely.
I'll still criticize and say, you know, in a good way, and say, you know, let's get the other thing back on track. But heck yeah, you know, don't bury the good stuff just for no reason, you know.
Right.
And also they keep pulling off surprises, and people just need to rediscover their joy in these things of not being spoiled. And I remember a reaction, for instance, in the maybe the 6th episode or something, when the Mandalorian just started flying towards the planet to find Grogu or whatever. We're like, oh, he's going there now. You really can't make up for those kind of shocks. You know, the first time you see that, it has an impact. You know,
exactly.
It carries a lot, and it's a communal thing we all go through. And I really enjoyed both of those episodes, and someday they will be edited properly and take their place in The Mandalorian. In fact, everybody's gonna be groaning when we have to watch those again as the first 2 episodes. It's like there's 12 new episodes of Mandalorian. What? 2 of them are the ones we've seen already?
Exactly.
And then everybody be very upset.
When we're talking about those episodes, I want to point out a few things I like the best. I love the return of Mando, the smackdown at the meatpacking plant or whatever that place was. That was just like a classic bounty hunter scene. You know?
It was.
He's going to collect a bounty, and that's it. Yeah, and pulling out the dark saber. That was another one of those shocking moments that Greedo mentions. Like, what? He's going to use the dark saber for bounty hunting?
Yeah,
I was like,
he's going to straight up use it.
And then they show you the Night of 1,000 Tears or whatever it was.
Yes,
it's just the stuff just keeps on piling. You're like, wow, they're just really bringing it. And,
the return of the armor and her story, and then that gets to another point where to some degree, the television shows have really done well with this, the use of flashback. Although it got to be excessive as a storytelling device in Book of Boba Fett, that was a really effective flashback where she called back to the Night of Thousand Tears. And it may not even be a flashback. I don't know if was she there? Did she see it? Or are we just seeing that now as like almost mythological thing of their past that she's recounting, because it looked epic in the way
Absolutely,
it was shot.
yeah.
It was just incredible.
Operatic. It looked operatic, which
yes.
let's recall back to our many years ago when Star Wars was referred to as a space opera.
Yeah. And that gave depth to the whole Mandalorian culture too. We got to find out more about their past, their mythology, their legends, and the background of the Darksaber. And then we end with that wonderful fight between who was it, Paz Vizsla and
Paz Vizsla, yeah,
and Mando over the Darksaber, where we learn that it's going to really take somebody with Jedi powers to be able to wield that weapon appropriately, leading back to their return to Grogu. So all of that was just so well structured, so well put together. To bring, not only bringing characters back that we were interested in, but giving them much more depth. So all the beginning sequence of that first Mando episode was excellent, even down to that long take where he's walking through the space station.
Yeah, the unbroken take where he walks all the way through and gets on the elevator and goes up. Yeah,
the details of that environment and everything. It was like, this is Star Wars. This is a new world.
Yeah,
that I haven't seen before.
And it was fantastic. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that,
also,
of course. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it. One of the things I love about the Mandalorian is that being him is not attractive. That whole long shot, he's in horrible pain.
Oh yeah, he's limping the whole time.
And it's the suffering he has to go through just to get the basics done. It's like everything is the hard way for him. Nothing is the easy way. So yeah, again, it reminds us who this guy is. That he's long suffering, and he is not Superman. Even though he does have some plot armor and all that. And that's what I love about him is the scene where in the meat packing you mentioned, where all the kind of bulldog characters are staring him down. He just told them, hey, you can have the money and all that. I'm just gambling on the fact he didn't like your boss very much, because he wasn't a very nice guy. And it worked, but they could have just chopped him to pieces. I mean, they could have beat him until he was dead and stolen his armor and show over. He's always gambling and getting by, but just barely. Part of the theme of all of these shows is they've really abandoned the idea of the lone hero. There's no such thing really in any of these shows, and it's part of the overarching theme of Book of Boba Fett, and it's part of why these Mandalorian episodes work within that theme, because Mandalorian never accomplishes much by himself. He always gets entangled with the needs of others, and then those others end up paying him back 10 times what he ever would have thought. He thought they were an annoyance, but they end up being the path to his success or whatever. So anyway, that was again a recurring theme in these two episodes, and that theme links in with the Book of Boba Fett.
Can I jump in there with my next favorite moment in that first Mando episode is another montage. He returns to Pelimato and to get a new Razor Crest, he thinks, and ends up getting the fighter, and the montage of shipbuilding. That was just so, and I think it lasted like 10 minutes.
It was
or something.
long,
it went on forever,
but it was really well
done.
done.
Look at it. But when you were first watching it, it was just so fascinating and uplifting and fun that you didn't feel like it was dragging at all. And it made such a connection between those characters. And another thing, like with the flashback to Night of a Thousand Tears, is it brought an old character back and gave her new depth. So, and it enhanced the connection between her and Mando.
Right.
And I just love the ships. The ships are so fundamental to Star Wars, the affection that we have for the ships. And I just felt that affection just coming out through that entire montage. It was just beautifully done. And that what ends the episode, isn't that right? He takes the the ship out after
Mhm.
that montage for a run.
And gets pulled over by the X-Wings. Yeah.
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 And again, it's so perfect for his character. He is the person that is always walking by and gets drawn in against his judgment, against everything, his protests, everything he said. He's just, no, I have something I need to do. I really want this other ship. Have you looked at this though? And then before you know it, he's invested in the actual activity of putting that ship together.
Yeah. And then he's
There's no
convinced,
talk
yeah.
of stopping. There's no talk of he's working endless hours, and he's lost everything else going on until he gets that accomplished. And then when he does, he's fully invested, and he ends up with something completely different than he thought he wanted. And but it's something that he needs, and
Yeah.
that's a very cool, different kind of heroic character, because he's almost like, it's part of that dad persona that he has. Is sometimes you have to trick dad into doing
Yeah.
the things you want him to do, but he'll do
Uh-huh.
it right once you get him involved, So anyway, I think his character, I think they have his character so nailed down. I hope he changes in good ways. I'm all for him changing, but
In the right way.
then the second episode, which was, anybody remember what that was called? The one with Grogu and Luke and all that.
I don't remember the title,
remember
the
the
episode
name
title
of
now, but I can look it up.
But again, a total left turn, but the deep fake progress is incredible. All the scenes with Grogu are gold. And they gave everybody who wanted more Jedi lore and more Jedi things to talk about a crap ton of things to talk about. In those two episodes, they let the online community, they dropped all this stuff for them to talk about the Mandalorians and all this, and the Imperials, and then all this stuff to talk about the Jedi, and to speculate and to go back and forth about, is Luke right, wrong, what, the Jedi philosophy, Grogu, all that. So and I believe that a lot of that was done because of the huge delay that was going to be happening between Mandalorian season 2 and the next Mandalorian.
Mhm.
I think people don't even ever talk about that, but I think that's why those 2 episodes were there, was to keep us invested.
Keep people invested.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think we're
Otherwise,
gonna
it just would have been a special, that they would have put out.
right. And I think we're going to start getting a lot more of that. The point you made earlier, that get used to certain shows following other characters because they are specifically trying to intertwine all this stuff.
It's a book, and
Yeah.
a book doesn't guarantee, because
But
it's,
you're just going to stay with one character
called,
from beginning to end. Yeah.
just because it's called one person's name or something doesn't.
Right.
You're going to get chapters with other characters and other plots and subplots, and you just have to. You can't let your cynicism just destroy the joy of allowing them to surprise you with things.
Right.
I want them to continue to surprise us regardless. And I've enjoyed all the surprises so far. I know I'm not going to enjoy some of them, but somebody remind me when a big surprise comes up that I hate, that I said this. But I'm all for them continuing the trend, whether I like it or not, because and these shows are very slow moving. And one criticism you could have for all of them is that basically almost nothing happens for most. There's a lot of filler and stuff. So the surprises keep you invested and keep you excited and things to talk about. And it's just there's nothing quite like it from when it throws me back to when we were kids and we'd go to see these movies and we would just be shocked at something that happened in the movie.
Right. Absolutely.
You can't fake or recapture that, So
and we never would have imagined that, but especially because of the quality of the deep fake Luke at the end of the Mando season, we couldn't imagine that they would be able to pull off entire scenes with
Right.
Luke. So
A whole episode where he dominates,
Yeah, most of like a few seconds cameo or something. And that was just shocking. Jaw dropping, sitting there watching it. How long is this going on? And I kept saying, this is like a sequel to Return of the Jedi.
Right.
This is just incredible.
For better or worse, I feel like it was. I said it when we watched it. It is a game changer. It is a game changing episode. Whether people want to admit it or not, whether they like it or not, they have Lucasfilm and Disney have a ton of power over these images, these sounds.
Yep.
And it's only, as long as they continue to invest money in it. If they say we're not going to pursue this rabbit hole anymore, then it will. So other people will have to do it, the fans or something. But I've seen nothing to make me think it's going to take steps backwards.
Yeah, I agree.
online the fans are doing crazy stuff, that you would have never imagined. That looks, if we were back in the old standard def days, everybody be fooled,
Oh,
the stuff the
absolutely,
fans
yeah.
are doing. So, anyway, yeah, to me, it was, when I watched it, I said, I feel like this is history. I'm watching history.
Mhm.
This is the moment, whether this episode really is historical in itself or not, with anything that actually happened in it. It's the totality of what I'm seeing.
Right.
It's so mind-boggling to me and so unexpected that I feel like the game is completely changed. And
So
I
it's
have
like
no
like
idea
you're
what
saying,
could happen
basically
next.
it's kind of like a tentpole moment or a watershed moment, kind of like Jurassic Park was in the 90s. That from
Yes.
that moment on, CGI changed and the nature of films
Yeah.
changed. Yeah.
And
So
for me, it was that way because this is my favorite character. Luke Skywalker
Right.
is my favorite character. And if
so
I
it
can
made more of an
accept him,
impact than had they
Yeah.
done that with some side character. Yeah.
yeah, I would still, like
Mhm.
when they did it in, say,
Rogue One.
Rogue One,
Like
or Ant-Man when they did
Oh, yeah, they
Michael
de-aged.
Douglas.
Yeah, Kirk
Yeah,
Douglas and all. Yeah.
it was
Or Michael
impressive.
Douglas, sorry.
Yeah, it was very impressive, and I knew this stuff was going places. But there's certain times that you see like deep fakes online were more like when they were doing real people, and it was like, this is getting crazy where you won't even know a news clip anymore if it's the real person or not.
That's the thing. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
very
that had more of
creepy
an
and scary.
impact on me than the other stuff. And then seeing them actually having the intent and the will to do it, it takes some cojones to do what they did.
Yeah, it does.
And
Agreed. Because that could have fallen completely flat,
Oh,
and it would have ruined the show.
It would have wrecked a lot of really bad, a lot of things. And so they had to have everything in a row, for this to work out. Anyway, I know in the future that won't always be the case.
Yeah.
So, and it could get really bad, but anyway, who knows? I just feel like if they're tasteful with it, that we may see a lot more than we ever bargained for, as far as the legacy of the Star Wars characters and all that stuff. So
yeah,
and Book of Boba Fett will always be the one that I'll remember the most for that, because Luke at the end of Mandalorian season 2 was like an awesome treat, but I had no doubt that wasn't Luke. I knew it was a composition. This was stunning to me.
Right.
Even though I could see the imperfections still and everything, I wasn't.
This is what we wanted for so long. We wanted a training sequence with Luke as a master training someone, and we got that several seasons.
And they also, again, it was a perfect character, because you couldn't do this right now with Han Solo, because Han Solo is too expressive and everything. But Luke is in a point where he's calm, passive. He's a Jedi master. He's not trying to bellow and overact and chew scenery and stuff. He only has, he's the perfect foil to do this kind of thing with. And so again, it's an awesome merger of the moment, the actors, the technology, and the character. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's like you said, they, the fact that they were able to get us to a point to where we see real scenes with Luke Skywalker, it allows that suspension of disbelief, unlike the shots in Mandalorian.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, you were never convinced that it was
no,
actually
it was part
Luke
of the story. There. I was willing to concede the things that I and go along with it. My suspension of disbelief wasn't destroyed by any means, but it wasn't. But I knew from the beginning. I think one of the first things I said was, "Hey, CGI," when they took the
I
whatever.
Yeah.
So I was criticized Sally for. I can't say what I want in my own living room, but
exactly. How dare you have a thought that's different?
Right? No, it's perfectly fine. Continue to criticize me. I love it. But no, but it didn't destroy. For its time, it was amazing. I hope they go back and redo it, because it will really create this flawless bridge. Anyway, so I think we all agree those 2 episodes were like
really stand out.
We have nothing. I'm so glad we got
zero criticism.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine being so bitter as saying, "Take those away. I don't want to see those." They don't even have Boba Fett.
The return of Grogu too was wonderful. That was another shock. We weren't expecting Grogu to return until the next Mando season.
Right. They thought they were just going to set it up. Yeah.
Yeah, to see him training with Luke and get then the kind of inversion of Yoda's training with Luke was wonderful.
Can I say one more thing to close that out?
Yeah.
I don't interrupt you, but just before I forget it, do you know something else that didn't have Boba Fett in it? The original Star Wars, before they went back and added him, and number one movie in the world, only so it did okay.
Yeah. Good point.
It doesn't have to be in it started every single scene like a standee.
So those 2 episodes are home in the Book
Yeah.
of Boba Fett. What about anything else?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. To me, the standout episodes were the 2, were basically episodes 5 and 6, the Mandalorian episodes, as it were. I just watched those over and over and over again when they first came out.
Let me just read what I jotted down. The
Mhm.
Tuskens in design, practical effects, the 2 Mando episodes, the train battle, which Gundark went into. That was one of the best action sequences they've done.
Yeah.
And it kicked ass on the solo train battle. I'm sorry that you couldn't see for crap because the whole thing was too dark.
Yeah.
The Rancor, Cad Bane versus Cobb Vanth, and Black Chrysanthemum. Those are the things I wrote down.
I do want to say one other thing: the reunion of Mando and Grogu. That was another thing we thought wasn't going to happen until maybe even we thought Grogu might even be gone for much of the next season of Mando. We didn't know how much we would see of Grogu. They're reunited right at the end of the show, that final episode, and in the midst of battle. I love how it occurred, because you're not going to be able to top the sentimental impact of their parting at the end of the Mando season.
Right.
And so they don't even attempt that. They have it in the midst of battle, and it's just so funny and sweet. Grogu just levitates right into Mando's arms while they're racing along
right in the middle of
street.
their racing down the streets.
Yeah, and it was just absolutely perfect for what they were trying to do. And I liked utilizing Grogu to help soothe the Rancor, and bring all of that to a peaceful end after a lot of destruction, after the destruction of
Grogu is like cat videos for Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't.
You can just watch him do anything.
Can't
Grogu
make
goes
it
to
up.
Walmart. Grogu looks for a parking space. Grogu, brushes his teeth. Oh, he has teeth. Look.
He has teeth. Look how cute.
I mean, yeah. And I will say I liked Kelly Motto. Is that her name?
Yeah.
And that's pretty miraculous. I actually liked her.
Yeah, I had not cared for her at first, but she was
she's really grown on
series.
me. Yeah, the way they utilized her in Book of Boba Fett really grew on me. Okay, well that's our.
So we've ordained it a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect in every way.
Book of Boba Fett. Even though it was a magazine and they lied to us, and it was a magazine.
It was a magazine, not a book.
It was not a book, but I got it in the mail. I got it from Amazon.
It was a leaflet.
What is this? Yeah.
So that's our favorite moments of the Book of Boba Fett. I hope you enjoyed it. You guys know the drill. Just click like, leave us some comments, subscribe, click the bell icon for notifications, and we will see you next time. That makes me actually want to go watch the movie. I'm not gonna lie. At least episode 5. That's what you're talking about.
This is the meme. This is the meme that set me off.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Obi-Wan, the fans in quotation just result immediately want an ultra powerful godlike being, completely unbothered by his past, capable of mowing down entire armies all before the twin sunset. Where did they come up with this? Obi-Wan Lucasfilm delivered a complex character suffering from the effects of PTSD and depression over having lost literally everything, yet fighting overwhelming odds to do the right thing and rediscover himself. Fighting overwhelming odds?
Wow.
But anyway, this shit sets me off. It pisses me off so bad. The low blows they go to just lump everybody together into ridiculous. Like, if you don't want to see Obi-Wan with PTSD, you're a bad person, and you're just over here. I want an ultra powerful, godlike being, completely unbothered by his past.
That's what I was looking for.
Like what was that Photoshop from?
I don't know.
I got they added the belt and the
Yeah, the belt and the lightsaber.
lightsaber's even tight up against his side. They couldn't even get
It
to it.
even looks like the stomach and the biceps are just like, and everything is separate. It's like taken from 20 different
Right.
pictures.
I think it is. You can actually see a line at the waistline there. It looks like that
Yeah,
the body
I
was just
can-
photoshopped in.